My wife's car was in my brother's driveway at 11 p.m., and every light in his house was off. I didn't plan to drive past his place. I was coming back from a hardware store 3 miles away, and my hands did the steering before my brain could argue. That's what happens when the same uneasy feeling has been living in your chest for 6 weeks. Your body starts following instincts you haven't admitted to yet. Her car. His driveway. Not on the street. Not passing through. Parked. Nose pointing toward the garage like she knew exactly where to go. I pulled to the curb 2 houses down and sat there with the engine running and the heater blowing and my hands completely still in my lap. That's the detail I keep coming back to. My hands were still, like my body already knew, and the stillness was the only mercy it could offer me. I called her. 4 rings. 5. Then, "Hey babe, still at the office. This project is killing me." Her voice was perfect. Calm. Slightly tired in the way that sounds believable. And I had heard that voice before, dozens of times, over the past 6 weeks, and I had believed it every single time, because she was my wife, and you don't build a marriage on suspicion. "Which office?" I said. A pause. Half a breath. "What do you mean, which office?" "The downtown one." "Okay," I said. And I hung up. I sat there for another 4 minutes. I know it was 4 because I watched the clock on the dashboard change twice. Then her car's brake lights flickered, and she backed out of his driveway like the ground beneath her was already starting to crack. She drove the opposite direction. I followed. Not close. Not reckless. But I followed because my chest had replaced every other organ in my body, and I could not go home to a dark house and sit there wondering what I already knew. She drove 6 miles to a gas station on Route 9. Pulled in. Sat in the car for a long time. Long enough that I pulled into a lot across the street and watched her through 2 lanes of traffic and a set of headlights that occasionally swept between us. Her phone was up. She was typing. Then she put the phone face down on her lap and just sat there, staring at nothing. And there was something in that moment, the way her shoulders were carrying something heavy, that made me feel like I was looking at a woman I did not know at all. I drove home. She got in 40 minutes later. Said she'd stopped for gas on the way back from the office. Said she was exhausted. Said she was going straight to bed. And I said, sure. That was Thursday. By Sunday, I had pulled our cell phone bill, checked the call logs against her explanations for the last 40 days, and discovered that 43 of her office texts had been sent while she was not in the downtown area. I know this because her location sharing had been turned on since we got married, a thing we'd done together as a trust exercise after a friend of ours had their identity stolen. She forgot she'd left it on. Or maybe she got comfortable. Or maybe she just stopped believing I would ever look. 43 texts. 17 calls averaging 22 minutes each. And every single one of them routed through the cell tower that served his neighborhood. My brother, Marcus, 36 years old. My kid brother who I had coached through his divorce 3 years ago. Who had slept on my couch for 6 weeks after his ex-wife left. Who I had driven to an apartment viewing and co-signed a lease for because his credit was wrecked and he needed someone to vouch for him. That Marcus. I did not call him. I did not confront her. Not yet. Because I had learned something about myself over those 4 days. The calm that had taken over was not numbness. It was something far more dangerous. It was the quiet that happens when a man decides he is going to know everything before he moves an inch. Monday she worked late again. I knocked on Marcus's door at 9 p.m. He answered in a t-shirt and jeans, and his face moved through 4 different emotions in about half a second. Surprise. Then recognition. Then something awful that I can only describe as guilt wearing a mask that wasn't ready for company. "Hey man," he said. Like that was enough. Like, hey, man could carry the weight of everything I was standing there holding. "She's not at work," I said. He said nothing. "She hasn't been at work," I said. "Not once in 6 weeks. You want to tell me something, Marcus? Because I have been standing on the outside of something for a long time, and I'm tired of not knowing the shape of it." He stepped back from the door, which I took as an invitation. Or maybe just the absence of him being able to stop me. I walked in. His living room was clean. That was the first thing I clocked, and it broke something in me, because Marcus was never clean. His apartment when he lived with us had been a disaster. Dishes, laundry, takeout bags. But this place was clean. There was a throw blanket folded on the couch that I recognized. It was from our house. From the linen closet in the second-floor hallway. I had bought it at Target 3 winters ago. I picked it up. "Marcus." He sat down on the couch. He put his elbows on his knees and his face in his hands, and he made a sound that was not crying and was not words. It was the sound a grown man makes when the thing he has been holding finally gets too heavy for the hallway he's been hiding it in. How long? I said. He lifted his head. His eyes were red. 8 months. 8 months. I set the blanket down very carefully on the coffee table. I did that deliberately, because if I had not done something deliberate in that moment, I do not know what I would have done instead. 8 months ago, I had thrown him a birthday party. 40 people. My backyard. My grill. My wife making her famous potato salad and laughing at his jokes, and standing next to me with her hand in mine while we all sang happy birthday to my brother. 8 months. Did you know she was married to me when it started? Yes. One word. And it leveled everything. I sat down in the chair across from him because my legs made that decision for me. We sat there across from each other in a living room with my wife's blanket between us, and I tried to find something in his face that made this make sense. Some explanation written somewhere in the lines of him that would turn this into a story I could understand. There was nothing. He just looked like my brother. That was the worst part. He looked exactly like the person I had known my entire life. Why? I said. I don't have an answer for that, he said. I've been asking myself that for 8 months, and I don't have an answer that's good enough. I'm not asking for good enough. I'm asking for true. He was quiet for a long time. Long enough that the refrigerator clicked on in the kitchen, and I could hear traffic outside and the whole silence of a life that was being rearranged without my permission. It just happened, he said finally. After my divorce. She was there a lot, checking on me. And one night he stopped, looked at the floor. I know that's not an answer. I know that. She was there because I asked her to be. I said. I asked her to check on you because you were my brother and you were struggling and I trusted you both. He flinched. Good. Does she love you? I said. He looked up. She says she does. And you? He didn't answer right away, which was an answer. I love her, he said. And his voice had the terrible steadiness of something true. I stood up. I was not going to cry in his living room. I was not going to break in front of him. Not because I was too proud, but because the pain I was feeling was mine and it did not belong to this apartment. I'll be in touch, I said. Where are you going? He said. He actually said that. Like he had the right to ask. I turned around at the door. She's my wife, Marcus. Where do you think I'm going? She was home when I got there. Sitting at the kitchen island with a glass of wine and her laptop open and the whole ordinary architecture of a life we had built together arranged around her like nothing was on fire. She looked up, smiled, said, "You okay? You look pale." I sat down across from her. I put my keys on the counter between us. And I said, "Tell me about Marcus." She stopped. The wine glass was halfway to her mouth, and she set it down with a precision that was almost surgical. And in the 3 seconds before she said a single word, I watched her run through options. Denial, confusion, anger, counteraccusation. I watched them all cross her face like weather. Then she said, "What did he tell you?" Not denial, not confusion. What did he tell you? 8 months, I said. She closed the laptop. She folded her hands on the counter. And she looked at me with an expression I had never seen on her face in 11 years of marriage. It was not guilt. It was not relief. It was something that looked almost like grief. Like she was mourning something from the wrong side of the loss. "I'm sorry," she said. "Don't," I said. "Not yet. I need you to tell me what's true. All of it. Right now." And she did. For 90 minutes she talked, and I sat there and let it land, and every sentence was a small demolition, and I did not move, and I did not interrupt, because I had decided I was going to know the full shape of this thing before I let myself feel it. She had fallen in love with him. That was the part she said most carefully, like she knew it was the part that would hurt the most, and she wanted to deliver it without flinching because she at least owed me that. She said it had started as comfort and turned into something she hadn't expected, and by the time she understood what it was, it already had roots. "Do you still love me?" I said. She looked at me for a long time. "Yes. But I love him too." She dropped her eyes. "I know how that sounds." "It sounds like a knife," I said. "In case you were wondering." She said nothing. "Did you want to leave me?" I said. I didn't know what I wanted. I kept telling myself it would resolve, that it would burn out. 8 months is a long burn. She winced. "I know." I stood up, went to the window, looked out at the backyard where we had strung lights 3 summers ago for a dinner party, where we had danced drunk at 2 a.m. to a song she loved, where our dog was buried in the corner under the dogwood tree. I need you to leave tonight, I said. I'm not saying forever. I'm saying tonight I cannot be in this house with you. She did not fight it. She went upstairs, came down with a bag, and at the door she turned and said, I am sorry. Whatever that's worth. I am genuinely sorry. It's worth something, I said. I don't know what yet. She left. I sat in the kitchen alone for a long time. The wine glass was still on the counter. Still had her lipstick on the rim. I left it there. I don't know why. Maybe because moving it would mean starting the process of erasing her from the room, and I was not ready for what came after that. My phone rang at midnight. Marcus. I let it ring. Rang again at 12:15. I turned the phone face down and went to bed. Laid on my side of the mattress. Looked at the ceiling. Thought about the birthday party. The potato salad. Her hand in mine. His face when he blew out the candles. 40 people had been there. Our parents. Our cousins. Her friends from work. Everyone smiling. Everyone holding their cups. And two of the people I loved most in the world were already 8 weeks into something that would eventually hollow out everything I thought I was standing on. I got up at 6 a.m. Called my father. Not to tell him. Not yet. Just to hear his voice. He's 71 and he answers the phone like he's been waiting for it. And he said, Hey, son. You're up early. Yeah, I said. Couldn't sleep. Everything okay? No, I said. Because I was done performing. Even for him. But I will be. He didn't push. He just said, Okay, I'm here. That was enough. 3 days later, I sat across from a divorce attorney. She laid out my options with the efficiency of someone who had seen this room before and had long ago decided that professionalism was the kindest thing she could offer. I listened. I asked questions. I did not cry. On the way out, I sat in my car in the parking garage for 20 minutes. Then I called Marcus. He answered on the first ring. Of course he did. I'm not calling to yell at you. I said, I'm calling because I need you to hear something. He was quiet. I co-signed your lease. I coached you through your divorce. I threw you a birthday party. I drove you to doctor's appointments. When your car was broken, and you took the one thing I did not have a backup for. I stopped. Let that breathe. I don't know if I'll ever be able to look at you again. I don't know if we come back from this. I want you to know that what you did will cost you more than you're prepared for. And I want you to know that not because I want to hurt you, but because I need you to understand the weight of what's already gone. He said, I know. I don't think you do yet. I said, but you will. I hung up. Months later, she asked to talk. We met at a coffee shop, neutral ground. Her idea, which was smart. She looked different. Not worse. Just rearranged. Like someone who had stopped holding themselves together with a particular kind of tension and was still figuring out what shape they were underneath. She told me she had ended it with Marcus. She said it like she was offering me something. And I had to decide in that moment whether to receive it as the thing she meant it to be or the thing it could not actually be. Why? I said, because I realized that what I did to you was unforgivable, and that being with him would mean living inside that unforgivable thing every single day. And I'm not strong enough for that. That's not a very flattering reason to end it. I said. No, she said. It isn't. But it's the true one. I looked at her across the table. 11 years. Vacations and fights in grocery lists and hospital waiting rooms, and that dance in the backyard at 2 a.m. All of it real. All of it ours. I don't know if I can come back to you. I said. I know. But I don't know that I can't either. She nodded. Like she had prepared herself for exactly that answer and was grateful it was not something worse. We drank our coffee. We did not fix anything. We sat there in the wreckage of something enormous, and we were both still breathing, and I did not know what that meant yet. Marcus and I have not spoken since that phone call. My parents know. Now, my mother cried for 3 days. My father called Marcus and said things I was not present for, but was later told were devastating in their quietness. Our cousins have taken sides in the way that families do, with more heart than information and more loyalty than wisdom. At Christmas, for the first time in 36 years, Marcus did not come to dinner. I set his place anyway. Nobody mentioned it. But nobody moved it either. That's the place I'm still in. Not resolution. Not destruction. Something slower and more uncertain than both. Here is what I know. Betrayal does not come from enemies. It can only come from people who were close enough to matter. and the specific agony of being betrayed by two people at once, one you chose and one you were born beside, is that you cannot separate the grief. It comes as one thing, heavy and undivided. Here is what I don't know: whether the capacity to forgive someone is about them or about you. Whether the decision to let them back into your life is an act of strength or an act of fear wearing a noble costume. Whether the man who sets a place for his absent brother at Christmas is keeping a door open or simply refusing to admit the door is already gone. I don't know which one I am. Do you?